So today, we're one of our partners is the Rural Development Network. You might know them as previously as ARDN, but they're the Rural Development Network now. And we were talking to them recently about some programs that they had. And this one in particular was one we wanted to share with their members because we think it's an opportunity perhaps for your organization, but also you may know of others in your community that this would be a valuable program for. So today we have Daniela Seiferling, and she is the project manager for work integrated learning with the Rural Development Network. And I believe we have Deanne Bernard on as well, who's the executive director there. But I think we'll just turn it over to Danielle, and you can tell us a little bit about your program and how we might be able to take advantage of it. We'll have some Q&A after, so feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and Nancy's going to moderate those questions for us. And so, Daniela, take it away.
Thank you, Leanne, for that introduction. So as mentioned, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about our new initiative known as Rural Roots, which is a work integrated learning program that we've just started and hope to turn into a longer term initiative with RDN. So today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about who RDN is for those of you who might not know us, Rural Roots, and kind of give an overview of the program, showcase a little bit of the benefits of work integrated learning for organizations, and share some of the ways that you can be involved in the program. And I will try to keep it as brief as possible so that we have space for questions and discussion at the end. So Leanne and Nancy are monitoring the chat, so feel free to just put your questions in there. We'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So for those of you that don't know, the Rural Development Network is a nonprofit that started in 2009, and it was a voluntary partnership between the 21 post-secondary institutions in Alberta. And so in November of 2020, we recently rebranded from the Alberta Rural Development Network to the Rural Development Network because our programs and initiatives were expanding beyond the reach of just Alberta. So we thought it was easier to rebrand than continue using Alberta in our name. So some of the things that we do are around sustainable housing and supporting communities to address their needs for things like affordable housing, health and wellness, rural immigration, ending homelessness through our unique homelessness estimation process, attracting and supporting newcomers, and developing agri-food initiatives, or revitalizing communities through our rural revitalization program, transportation, and now the work integrated learning initiative that just started. So what is work integrated learning? For those of you that are not as familiar with it, it is basically a type of work placement that combines academic programs or fields of study with practical hands-on experience. So these placements can either be paid, depending on how it's structured. So if they're unpaid, they're usually for credit and tied to the post-secondary semesters. You probably know them by their other names. So the most common types of WIL are research-based projects, internships, apprenticeships, or clinical and practicum placements. And those are the ones that people usually are most familiar with. They also include types like cooperatives, field placements, entrepreneurship, community service learning, and other forms of work experience. So in terms of what we're trying to do with this initiative this is a partnership between RDN and the Business and Higher Education Roundtable. And our ultimate goal is to create work placements across Canada and raise awareness of work integrated learning, both its benefits for students and employers. And our hope is to kind of build momentum and capacity for rural communities through this knowledge exchange, the building of meaningful relationships, and creating an increased awareness of the benefits of working, living, and supporting community development, especially for rural and remote communities. So one of the questions we're commonly asked by both employers and students is kind of what's in it for me? We know, especially since the start of the pandemic, that finding and attracting talent is one of the barriers employers are facing. So you're struggling to find quality talent, we're struggling to keep employees engaged if they're on our staff currently, and also balance the current restrictions while still meeting our business goals and objectives. So hosting a WIL placement presents a unique opportunity to engage the future workforce and showcase the benefits of your sector or industry. So quality placement can change the direction of a student's future career goals. I am myself a product of a I was paired with a nonprofit organization during my post-secondary degree and wound up working in the nonprofit sector as a result. Another thing that often appeals to employers is perhaps you have a project that's been on the back or something that you've wanted to get to for a very long time, but maybe haven't had the human resource capacity to get it from the ideation phase to the completion phase. So this is a way for you to engage students or link these deliverables to other course objectives and move it from the back burner to maybe completion, depending on the scope of the project. Or perhaps you're a business that has busy seasons or surges. For example, Christmas is coming up, you might have seasonal products and services that you need to move. So you can host events like a Christmas market or showcase a new product or service through marketing and communications. So will placement is an opportunity for you to engage a student in a short-term project that can help you achieve those goals or deliverables. And lastly, it's an opportunity to connect with new, unique, and innovative talent. Youth are generally more aware of the trends. They're often tech savvy, or they may know the latest research or different methods for approaching a problem. And so these can be put to use in your organization and maybe bring in some different perspectives that we hadn't really thought of before. And some of the things that we've heard, especially from our previous participants in will placement or organizations who work with students quite frequently, this is kind of what they've had to say about their experiences. So the first is from a former will student who completed a community service learning placement during her undergraduate degree. And she was paired with a nonprofit organization for a short-term volunteer placement. She wasn't really sure what the nonprofit sector was, nor the role that it played in civil society. But through reflecting on her volunteer experiences and drawing connections from course materials and content, she found ways to employ those concepts and theories to real life, and is now employed as a youth engagement manager for Volunteer Alberta. So like I mentioned earlier, this often leads to people finding a niche or a new sector or an industry that they want to be a part of. For those of you who might be former Serving Communities internship participants, I think the program's success rate before they lost funding was something like 70% of graduates found employment in the nonprofit sector. So that was specifically geared towards nonprofits. In terms of the employer perspective, the Rural Development Network often hires a lot of students. So we see it as an opportunity to gain new ideas and insights, learn more about what people are looking for in terms of the future employment, things that might attract them to the role, what do they like about our culture, maybe their motivations and their future goals and aspirations, and what benefits would entice them to stay at the organization for a longer period of time. So we often find this lower stakes than recruiting for a full-time permanent position, and it allows both parties to kind of test the waters and see if it's a good fit. So those short-term projects help us move forward as an organization, but we also find a way to gain new talent. So in terms of data, I would say that at least 80% of RDN staff probably started as summer students or interns within the organization and have since found full-time permanent employment. So those are just some of the benefits of getting involved. And so now we'll showcase some of the ways that you can get involved if you're interested in being part of this program. So there's two kind of streams that we're putting together for organizations. As Leanne mentioned, if you're interested in sharing this with your networks or you know businesses that might be interested, feel free to help us promote the program, share our social media communications and landing page with your networks or potential employers. Or if you're interested in hosting a project, you are more than welcome to sign up as an employer, attend an onboarding session and post a project potentially matched with a student. So we are looking to host winter 2022 placements right now. So educators are posting starting January of 2022 until April 2022 is the next intake. So in terms of who is eligible, there is fairly flexible metrics for this program. So it is open to any nonprofit organization, municipality, other public sector organizations, and small to medium businesses based in rural or remote areas. And for the purpose of this program, what do we mean by rural? It's basically anything outside of the main metropolitan regions in the province or territory. So for Alberta, if you are outside of core Edmonton or core Calgary, you are considered rural or remote. That includes bedroom communities like Sherwood Park, Airdrie, St. Albert, all of those places. So as long as it's not metro, you're good. In terms of the process for signing up, for those of you who might be interested, and I'll share a link to the landing page and a couple of events we have coming up with Leanne and Nancy to share with you after this. So we have a landing page. One of our partners is the Ripen platform. So you can create your company profile. We'll share communications about the program. You'll attend an onboarding session. So we'll host one of these a week where we share an overview of the Ripen platform, give you some tips and tricks for creating a project and answer any questions you may have that are specific to your business. You'll post a project and begin searching for potential institutions in Canada or potential students. Then you'll connect with educators or community service learning partners to align with specific course objectives and refine your project. So in most instances, the postings on Ripen are free and tied to credit. So these are internships that happen virtually, and the only thing that they ask from the employers is for support and feedback. So as long as you align with the course objectives, they usually find a match for you. And then no match with students, and throughout the process, you will provide support and feedback and sometimes mentorship directly through that platform between yourself, the student, and the educators to kind of move the project forward to completion. So we are partnered with 4 post-secondary institutions right now: Mount Royal University, MacEwan University, Medicine Hat College, and Portage College, but you are not limited to those 4 institutions. So if there is a program that you're interested in Canada that is listed on the Ripen platform, you are also able to match with those programs. So that's pretty much the process, and it was very quick, so I will open it up to questions and conversation.
That's great. So now I'm going to try and pinch hit here with Nancy. My internet keeps shutting down. And she's trying to find the chat box because hers is disappearing. So what a day. So I'm going to try and we'll try and figure out if you maybe want to just put up your hand and we can try and call on you. Maybe that's the easiest way to do it. But are there any questions with respect to the presentation? Wow.
Hi, Leanne.
Eleanor, hi.
Hi. So wondering, Daniela, if you can share some of the type of placements that you've seen maybe in economic development or municipalities and what type of work they have been working on.
Yeah, so some of the most common placements that are on the platform right now are around things like fund development. So they have a lot of business students, as well as marketing and communication students. So some of the things that I've seen on there is them setting up your organization for audits, creating business processes, or helping you with marketing and communications projects. I know one of our partners was interested in advertising a Christmas market and getting that out on social media. So you can connect with students to put together a social media strategy, provide advice on what platforms might be the most relevant, and even create key messages or hashtags to help you get the most out of your messaging, or even explore avenues for paid advertising opportunities. So it is quite open. And I'd say there's lots of flexibility depending on what you are interested in doing. And our partner institutions have quite the various programs. So if there's more of a social innovation lens, like say if you're interested in developing an abundant communities program, very similar to what Edmonton has. I know organizations are interested in that. You can hire a social innovation student to help you put together one of those strategies for your community. I've also seen, in terms of municipalities, I've seen students creating websites for the municipality. So very similar to what economic development alliances do, like enticing people to come, sharing community information, maybe community calendars. Yeah, and those are some of the projects that I've seen.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? You did such a great job with your presentation, Danielle. You just covered all the bases, I guess.
I see some coming in the chat.
Here's one here. It says, how long are typical projects? What's the time frame?
That's a great question. So typically they run with the semester. So for example, coming up for winter 2022, they will run from January to April. Then your next intake will be spring, which is typically May, June. Summer would be July and August. And then they would start again for fall, which would be September through December. Things like practicum placements or apprenticeships tend to last a little longer. They are more of a longer term relationship, so they could last longer than the semester. Apprenticeships are usually for trades. So you're developing a longer term relationship while those folks go through their program. So it could be anywhere from 1 to 4 years.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Well, there was one from Natalie I saw come in.
Yeah, I think she was asking about the time frame. Yeah.
Natalie, did you want to ask a question? I guess not.
I think it was already answered, Leanne.
Oh, perfect. I'll stop
Good.
to see if I can see the chat as well.
Now, another question is, are they full-time or part-time? And do students continue their studies during the placement?
That's a great question. So they are usually part-time. So they're doing this as part of their coursework. So they tend to be very short-term, maybe a few hours a week, no more than 3 hours a week, usually, depending on the internship. And so I would say over the grand scheme of the project is about 40 to 80 hours.
And you were saying, Daniela, that you have all of this information on your website. So we'll share that link, of course, with everybody after the call is done, along with the presentation, and people can find out, you know, all the information on your website and the parameters and the process to apply and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
And they will be continuing their studies for the second part of that question. So this is usually tied to their coursework. And for the length of this project, they're in their undergraduate degree just for this first iteration, as that's what our funder has asked for. So they could be in their first to fourth year, and they can be part-time or full-time students.
And there was another question as well about the academic institutions that you're partnered with again. What are they? Who are they?
Yes. So it's Mount Royal University, MacEwan University, Portage College, and Medicine Hat College.
Okay. And the next onboarding is going to be?
If you sign up on the Ripen platform, the next onboarding will be Thursday, November 18th.
Oh, it's coming up soon. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We do them every Thursday.
Every Thursday. All right. And will students have the opportunity to participate virtually, or is the requirement that they come into the office, or how does that work?
So specifically for the Ripen platform, if there are projects that people are interested in doing that are in person, we can look at that. We have some safety protocols in place, but the vast majority of them will be virtual.
Oh, the vast majority is virtual. Okay. All right.
Well, I think that's great. Are there any more questions, or? I think
I had a direct question from Ryan, so I'll just answer it that they're with the Community Economic Development Program at SFU, which I think is Simon Fraser University. And they're looking to provide greater value to future students and seeing how they can better set them up and their communities up for success. So wanting to know if they could be eligible for this work integrated learning. And Ryan, yes, we are open to working with other post-secondary institutions. So I will connect with you offline and we can talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, it's a great concept. You know, it's 2 prongs of helping the organization and helping the student. You know, lots of value for sure.
Well, that's great. So everybody will get an email after this with the link to the presentation. And so if you're interested, like Daniela said, every Thursday they're doing intakes. So Daniela, if what is your email? Can you just tell people your email so if they want to get a hold of you after this as well?
Yes, I will drop it in the chat. So it's Daniela and my last initial at ruraldevelopment.ca. It is a mouthful. I blame my parents for a really long name.
Well, we'll share that in the email that goes out as well to participants, if you don't mind, Daniela. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Well, if there's no other questions, we're not going to belabor it. I mean, you got the point of what the program is and you'll get the information. So hopefully some of you, if not all of you, can take advantage of it. So that's great. Thanks, Daniela, for being here today and for the work your organization does.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hosting me. I will share some information with you both to share out.
Great.
Thank you so much.
You.
All right.
Have a great day.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.